'Cause I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the deserts bare, man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. I've traveled, I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. Been to Tullamore, Seymour, Lismore, Lullaby, Nambour, Roochdore, Kilmore, Riverbank, Birdsville, Limmerville, Wallerville, Connemara, Connemara, Strathround, Crossbrine, Alladala, Darwin, Gingin, Lillaquen, Muckdilla, Wallumbilla, Bougainville, Cumberland, Ramakiller. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man.
I don't even think our mate Les, Lucky Star, has been to Cunderdin, but I have. Good morning to you, Tori Kopke.
Hi, how are you guys going?
Doing very, very well indeed. And I'm going to do a sound effect for you. Ready for it? You've got a playing a mystery sound. What was that?
Oh, I have no idea.
That was my visit to Cunderdin. I went through there on a train at somewhat... actually, I think we might have slowed down to go through Cunderdin.
But how many people would you have seen, would Neil have seen out the window of the train in Cunderdin, Tori?
Maybe two.
Had you been one of them, I would have demanded the train stop and I would have run across and given you a big handshake and a hug. The obvious question that is being asked by Rob and, in fact, Tom, who's in the studio with us but being silent, is where is Cunderdin?
Right. So it is 2 hours inland from Perth. So Great Eastern Highway towards Sydney. If you keep driving, you'd get there eventually. So 2 hours to the east of Perth.
Now, let's be a bit clear on that. That is, in fact, 2 hours on the Great Eastern Highway towards Geelong, because we don't care if it's on the way to Sydney.
No, we don't.
Towards Geelong.
Tori, 2 hours in Western Australia isn't very long at all, really. That's the amount of distance that some people would travel regularly. 2 hours would just seem like dropping down to the shops.
Yeah, I feel like a city farmer compared to some other people. Like we're really just down the street.
So the obvious question is, what do people do in Cunderdin? Because I don't think that there's many of you.
There's not many of us. Lots of farming and industry, so things that service farming industry, agriculture. Lots of manufacturing. It's a good little town, a good little hub.
Roughly how many people live there?
About 800 in the whole Shire.
Okay. And that's one of the really weird things, Rob. As you know, I've done a podcast called The Regional 250, which in fact features Tori, talking about her shire. But there are lots of shires in that part of the world that have got 800, 900, 600 people living in them. They're tiny little shires from a population perspective, but quite large geographically.
Yeah, the old shire thing was very common when I was growing up, but council amalgamations have sort of taken shires out of our community, but it seems over in WA they're still very much a part of your communities.
Oh, they're very important because, they're the ones running and I don't even live in the town of Cunderdin. I just live in the shire of it. The town's 25 k's from me. But, they run our roads, they manage our fire bans, all of our compliance, and, they're still a very important part of our community.
Someone I spoke to in one of the other smaller shires said that the funny thing is that because there's only 9 families in the entire shire, each of the families has a representative on the Shire Council. And they take it in turns, they rotate through, which I think is quite quaint. So we are quite perceptive on this radio show. That's one of the things that people listen in for, Tori. We have picked up...
Did that happen?
This is the Cunderdin accent, a little different to the conventional Australian accent. Could you please explain how that works?
Yes. So Cunderdin is a very, very unique town. Which is not an unsimilar story to Western Australia, where barmaids from across the world come and work at the pub in Cunderdin. And then the lucky few fall in love with locals and stay. And so my accent is originally from Texas, and now it's been Australianized. And
not that you'd notice.
The twang, I hope.
No, well, I noticed it. I made comment that she's not quite as broad as other Texans I've spoken to. So she has been somewhat Australianised. How long have you been here, Tori?
About 13 years now.
Okay, and it was the heart of a man that kept you there rather than the beautiful aesthetics of the town?
It was. I had big plans. I was supposed to keep traveling, but those plans never happened. I keep telling my husband he owes me a trip to Singapore because I didn't get on that plane.
Yeah. And when you say it was the reason you stayed, it is the reason you stayed, of course.
it is the reason I stay.
There's almost a movie script in this story.
Oh, there definitely is. There's an airport scene. There's stopping the plane. There's getting bags off the plane. But I'm saving that one for the movie.
And you know what I'm going to call the film? The Tory Story. Brackets, copyright, registered on the radio as we speak. No one has. If you use it, I want royalties.
You heard it here first.
That's it. Now, Tori, the fact that Cunderdin exists, it is a railway town because the Indian Pacific and other trains go through there. Is the population, long-term Cundinerians, or is it people who have, I've not come from Texas necessarily, but have said, what, I've had enough of Perth, I'm going to Cunderdin?
It's really long-term. It is definitely more of a settled population. After 13 years, it's rare you see a new face. We do get a couple of, maybe a new business will pop up and a new family will move to town, but it's a pretty settled population. Not too much transient traffic. I feel like we're just that little bit too far for people to tree change from Perth to out here.
Tori, on a personal level, have you, when you arrived in town, you obviously someone a bit different. I imagine all Australian towns would have taken you under their wing. Are you still a bit of a novelty in the village now, or have you managed to just blend in with the rest of the community and you're now just part of it?
I blend in, but I do still, I love your accent. Please keep talking.
Yeah, because she's blended until she opens her mouth, at which point people notice. Now, Tori, we don't make a big song and dance about promoting people's business, but I reckon the thing that you do is really worth mentioning. So before we head off into Rob's next program, tell us what you do and why what you do is important to regional Australia.
Yeah, so I am a rural and regional business coach. So I work with businesses all across Australia from our little office here on the farm, and it's really incredible because to me, if I can impact one business in a small town like ours, then that has a flow-on effect of just the sustainability of the economic viability of rural and regional Australia. And so it's really, really fun what I get to do, and I feel like the flow-on effect is massive.
And I think one of the things too is, I run a small business in rural Australia, but it's not quite as rural as Cunderdin, let's be honest, is often, small business operators in small towns feel a bit isolated, like you, for example, but having that, I guess, network / opportunity to work with others remotely must be a massive boost to them.
Oh, it is. It's huge. And, we were doing it before COVID. We were doing it back when it was still a bit of a novelty and jumping online and doing online networking. And so it's really been a part of my space for a long time. And I really enjoy it because it's incredibly hard for me to drive to Perth for a networking event.
Even harder to get to Geelong, I would have thought.
Actually.
Well, you got a 2-hour head start on the folk from Perth.
Tori, what skill set did you have before you started your business?
Pouring beers?
Yeah. So I worked in small business. Well, my parents had small businesses growing up, so I grew up around small business. And then I went to uni. After uni, there was this incredible moment called the GFC where no one was hiring anyone. And so I went traveling, and by some fluke, I got hired by an international oil and gas company. And so I was based in Australia, flying back to Texas, jet setting all over, and I got a huge amount of experience. And then eventually went on to become a general manager of a manufacturing company. And so I got both small-scale and corporate experience. And then I just started seeing this huge gap in the market that, no one's really looking after these country businesses. And that's when I started, just really niching down and starting to work with country businesses.
Well, as I like to say, Tori, anyone who's worked with an international oil and gas company are going to be a special kind of person.
Yeah, they certainly are.
Different crowd.
Yeah, no, Rob's got a totally different interpretation of what I just said, but you and me both, we've both done that over the journey. We are getting close to the end of our time together. Always great to have a chat to you, Tori. For people who do want to look up your business, give us an indication of how they can do that, please.
Yeah, so just torikopke.com, and that's it.
So TORIKOPKE.com.
Yep.
Thanks for telling us about Cunderdin and telling us your story. Tori, we'll chat again.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks. And there she goes, Tori Kopke from Cunderdin on our regional roundup.